As we mentioned earlier, the IRS watchdog now looking into potential criminal activity at the agency as 32,000 emails from Lois Lerner are found at a backup facility in West Virginia. The watchdog says employees didn't even make an effort to retrieve the emails. This discovery coming despite the IRS commissioner testifying those emails cannot be found. Let's bring in to talk about this A.B. Stoddard, associate editor and columnist for The Hill. Charlie Hurt joins us, columnist for the Washington Times. A.B., the IRS was directed with a subpoena by Congress to go look at these backup tapes to locate them. IRS said, they don't exist, and we did look. Well, now we find out last night they didn't even bother to look. How serious is this?
Well, it's very serious because finally you hear an admission from a government official from the Treasury IG, saying there could be potential criminal activity here. This is the news. Has the IRS stonewalled? We've known that for a very long time. Have they not found communication, electronic correspondence we knew was available to the government? We know this kind of thing just captured 3 men in Brooklyn who were trying to join the ISIS fight. We know that our government can do this, so we know they haven't been doing it. But this is what's news here and is significant is the fact that we have the Treasury IG saying, you know, this is potentially a criminal activity and there will be a criminal investigation.
You know, Charlie, the Inspector General said there is potential criminal activity here. That's a quote. But they can't prosecute. They have to turn it over to the Department of Justice. The trouble is, the Department of Justice was in on this thing allegedly, meeting with Lois Lerner ahead of time to talk about specifically prosecuting tax-exempt conservative groups.
Yeah, well, you know, it's the old adage, Greg, that, you know, the cover-up is worse than the crime, and it appears that what we have here is a very, very, very extensive and, as you point out, very coordinated cover-up. But the original crime itself was pretty highly egregious, and so you know, it was a year ago we were sitting around talking about this, and we were saying, man, it can't get any worse, can it? This is so bad, and yet here we are still talking about it, and the details getting you know, seedier and seedier, and I would suspect over the next year and a half, as I imagine the partisanship in Washington gets even more and more arched, that this is going to get very, very nasty.
You know, A.B., the Department of Justice was meeting with Lois Lerner before any of this broke to talk about prosecuting these tax-exempt conservative groups. And yet they're the only ones who seem so far to be charged with investigating any criminal activity. Isn't that a blatant conflict of interest, compounded by the fact that the DOJ appointed an Obama political donor to head up the investigation?
Well, I mean, yes, the conflict of interest is real. However, this entire investigation into the IRS has been something that the administration has hoped, with all the other scandals from the VA to Fast and Furious to Benghazi and everything else, and the crisis of the threat from ISIS would just be drowned out in the background. Once you're talking about criminal activity, I do believe, because you have a new Attorney General coming in, we don't even know if Loretta Lynch will be confirmed as the new Attorney General, but she will be under pressure, if she is, to oversee this investigation. I don't think now that you're talking about criminal activity, it's going to be stonewalled much more.
You know, it has to bother Americans, I would think, that amid all of this, we learned that Lois Lerner got $129,000 worth of bonuses, and yet she continues to clam up, invoking the fifth. President was asked, you know, famously about corruption at the IRS a year ago, February, and he said there's no corruption at the IRS. He then went on to blame Fox News. Charlie?
Yeah, well, you know, I feel like what we have seen over the last couple of years, and the blame rests directly at the White House. This hyper-partisanship that perhaps both sides have contributed to, but the White House has gone to great lengths to politicize so much that has historically been sort of off limits for that kind of partisanship. that, you know, it's sort of hard to feel sorry for this crowd that they're finding themselves in this sort of dilemma. And I think AB is exactly right, that, you know, they really have been hoping that with all the confusion, all the smoke and hysteria about all these other scandals, that at least some of them will fall by the wayside. I imagine some of them will. I imagine some people will get away with stuff here, but it looks increasingly unlikely that Lois Lerner and anybody in the IRS will get away with much.
Well, if you hide documents from Congress, that's obstruction of justice.
Oh, we would go to jail.
Yeah, and if you lie about it to Congress,
yeah.
that's perjury. So we'll wait and see. Charlie Hurt, AB Stoddard, good to see you both.